Welcome to Girl We Gotta Talk. I'm your host, Elena Jakes. This podcast is a lifestyle and entertainment news podcast where I talk all about life struggles, the breakups, the makeups, business aspirations, and I am always having new guests on to discuss it all. Plus, I'm always giving you the latest on all things pop culture. So, let's jump into today's episode because, girl, we gotta talk. Hello, and welcome back to Girl We Gotta Talk podcast. Today, I'm joined by Shawnaci Schroeder. She's a content creator and a YouTuber, and I was just telling her she has one of the best Instagrams I've ever seen, I've ever followed, one of my favorites. So if you're not already following her, you're doing yourself a disservice. But Shawnaci, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I feel like I need to come on this podcast more just so you can hype me up because I don't know if I've ever had anyone who's just so nice, right off the bat and just say all these nice things. So thank you. And thank you for having me.
Of course. I mean, it's all genuine. Seriously. It is your feed is just, I don't know, soothing, if that's weird to say. I don't know, but I just like it. And I'm big into neutrals. So your whole page is neutral vibes. And I just like it a lot.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And your YouTube channel is great too. So yeah, like I said, definitely give her a follow. But today we're going to get to know her a little bit better. I'm really excited to kind of, get to know another side of you. We're going to talk about obviously your Instagram and your YouTube and being on social media, and then fashion and a bunch of other things. So I'm really excited for today. But before we get into that, I like to do some rapid fire questions. I think it's pretty fun to do so that listeners can kind of get to know you better. They're random, so we'll just see how this goes.
I love that. I've actually never done anything rapid fire, mostly because I'm super chatty. So honestly, keep this all under wraps.
I say rapid fire, but if you want to elaborate, totally it doesn't matter. Okay, so the first question I have is, what was the last thing you ordered online?
I ordered this set from Not Found Co. and it was actually from Egypt. So a brand I just randomly found.
Ooh. What is your favorite movie of all time?
A Walk to Remember, hands down.
Oh, a classic. What is a hidden talent you have?
Oh no, I don't know. My tongue is really long, so I feel like if I really tried, it could touch my nose, but I also feel like I'm just I'm grasping at straws because I don't really know if I have a hidden talent.
Okay, well, that kind of counts. And then would you rather go deep sea diving or bungee jumping?
Definitely bungee jumping for sure.
Okay. When I was writing this one, I was thinking to myself, I honestly don't know which one I would want. Bungee jumping kind of scares me because I feel like you get whiplash, when you go down. It worries me.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
What is one piece of advice that you would tell your younger self?
Be 150,000% yourself all the time because that's what's cool about you.
There you go. That's great. Cool. So we will kind of jump in. I want to kind of get to know you a little bit better. Where are you from? How was growing up for you?
Yeah, so I'm from a really small town. And I feel like when I tell people that, they're like, oh yeah, I was too. And then I'm like, no. I'm from a really small town. And I'm sure there's people, probably listeners, that are from smaller towns than I am. I have about 15,000 or 12,000 people maybe in my hometown. So it's pretty tiny. My husband, he's actually from a town of 600 people. So, I mean,
What?
There are people I know that grow up in smaller towns, but I feel like that truly shaped me. We had corn festivals and hayrack rides and all these things to really bring the community together. So, yeah, that's kind of where I grew up and what kind of molded me just to I don't know, start off with good food, I guess.
Yeah. How was that growing up in a small town? Did you really, really love that? Or were you always one of those people that was I can't wait to get out of here?
I definitely was one of those people who was I am never going to come back after high school. I just had that mindset. And I think I thought that I would just be this happier version of myself once I left and came back. And then I actually went to university. And you find that when you're in other places, it's not the place that you're in. It's just being happy with whatever you have, wherever you are. So that kind of really gave me the push to move back home, which is where my family's from. It just kind of made more sense that way. But yeah, I definitely did not want to stay in my hometown forever.
So when you went to college, what was that experience like for you, especially coming from the small town? Were you like, okay, this is exactly what I thought. This is, there's way more here. Or was it kind of, I still feel the same. I'm just in a different place feeling the same way.
Yeah, well, I actually was home educated my entire life. So,
Wow.
along with like living in a small town, I also like never had a locker, like anything that was like, typical like high school experience. I did like go to prom and stuff, but so going to university was like a whole new world of like, oh my God, all these people and like all these different types of ideas. Um, so it was definitely a transition for sure, but it really made me realize that like it doesn't really matter where you are, you can be unhappy in any space. And if you're in a big city and there's lots of cars, you might really be frustrated by the traffic, but if you're in a small town, you might be frustrated that there's not enough people.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like wherever you are, you really have to just learn to love it, and that kind of like pushed me just to come back.
Yeah. No, it's funny you say that about the car thing because I am from Northern Virginia. So people associate that with like basically DC and, traffic. When I say like I'm from Northern Virginia, they're like, oh my God, you guys have the worst traffic. And growing up, I was like, I thought that was everywhere. And then I went to school, kind of the opposite of you. I went to school in a really small town. And people going slow and there not being enough people was like frustrating, and then I was frustrated with the traffic. So it's like kind of funny. Yeah, you're totally right about like it's just a matter of like, are you happy with yourself, not where you are. Yeah.
Totally. And I think that like I wish that I knew that before going to university, because I think I always had this idea in high school that was like I actually
It'll get
wanted to
better.
live. Yeah, I just thought like, oh, it'll just be better once I'm like around all these people and like doing all these cool things. And then it's like you do cool stuff and then you still just like aren't happy, and it's not the stuff that you're doing, it's just yourself. So yeah, that's kind of cool though that you went from like a ton of traffic to like
Yeah.
none and like people being slow. You're probably like, oh my God.
Yeah, like I think the town that I went to school in was probably about like 12,000 people. So it's kind of funny that you say, yeah, it's literally the opposite situation. So I've lived in yeah, both kind of areas and I like them for different reasons. I think they like benefited me for different reasons. Yeah, it definitely is a matter of, are you content with yourself outside of your environment, because at the end of the day you do go home from whatever you're doing and you're left with yourself.
For
So
sure.
that's a really good point. When you were in school, what were your like dreams and goals once you graduated and left college? Did you see yourself doing YouTube or social media full time, or what was like the goal then?
So I feel like I went into university more because that was just what you do.
Yep.
Just to preface, I never ended up finishing. I got like right at the precipice and like or the cusp, whatever. And I had like 10 credits left or something or one semester. And I was just like, why am I doing this? And I think I went just because that's what people tell you to do. And I remember when I was younger, I like wanted to be an actress and like do all these cool things. And then when I went to university, I remember people were really pushing me to like go into nursing or like going to teaching, which is great. And I like commend everyone who has a passion for those things, but that was not my passion. And I feel like I really was just pushed to do things that people felt were safe and good sources of income. So I initially started as a nursing major, and then I switched to a sociology major, and then I switched to an English major. And that's kind of where I like landed for like the entire time I was at university. And by the end, I was like, I don't even want to be a teacher. Like, I don't want to teach. Like, I don't want to do
Yeah.
any of those things. And so I feel like I kind of started with this idea, but it wasn't my own. It was a bunch of other people who were kind of influencing me. And then by the end of it, I didn't even realize like what I wanted to do. And I had all these things that I could have done, but it just wouldn't have been my passion. So I actually started working with people with special needs, and I really love that. So I ended up staying in that field for a really long time, became a director of a really cool program. And while I was doing that, I just, like anyone else, you start really cool hobbies. And I started a YouTube channel, and I just liked connecting with people. Like it was cool talking to people and like getting to know other people's stories and like hearing what makes them tick and being able to provide like a resource of some kind. All my old videos are still up. I wouldn't recommend to go watch them, but you can really see the growth and just in
Totally.
myself. Um, so yeah, I really fell into like social media just because I loved it, and then it got to a point where I just couldn't do two things. I was staying up until like 2 in the morning because I love this thing so much. Um, and then I would like get up for work the next day and like help people during the day. I just had to choose because obviously you can't really do two things full time. So I still give back regularly to the agency that I work for, and I love them so much. But I've just been able to move into this full time, and I feel like this is exactly what I was meant to do. I just had no idea that that's what I was meant to do way back in high school.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm really glad that you were able to find something that you were, passionate about. And it's funny when you go to college and you go to school, they always say like, those are the 4 years to find yourself and to figure it out. And for a lot of people, it is tough. And like, with you switching your major back and forth and trying to find like what best fit you, you were able to kind of, yeah, figure out what exactly you really enjoyed. And the pressures of, outside sources and like family members and people from your town kind of like pushing you into one direction is just like I have this conversation with a lot of people where they kind of exactly what you were just saying. They feel the pressure from other people to do certain things like career wise, and they get sucked into it. And like, unfortunately, they're probably still in that career or in that job. And they weren't able to like get away from that. So I commend you for being like, you know what, I don't really like what I'm doing right now. I think I'm going to leave. I think I'm going to do, what actually fits me and what, makes me happy waking up every morning, because a lot of us are stuck in jobs and scenarios where we're like, this literally sucks. Like, I don't want to do this. So,
And it's so hard because even the ideas that you have, like everyone's box is so small. So even if you were like, well, I don't really know if I want to do this major, the people encouraging you, it's almost like they still have a cap of like, well, you could do this, but they're not going to
yeah.
like the biggest links that they could. You know what I mean? Like no one encouraged me to go into social media full time. And
Wow.
um, no one encouraged me to do really anything outside of like the norm or what they felt was comfortable. Which is why I commend people so much who really just follow whatever passion that they have, whether it's like cooking or crafting or I don't know. I just feel like we're encouraged so young to follow our dreams when we're like really, really little. And then as you get older, you're encouraged to kind of follow the safe route. And I don't know, I just wish more people just followed their heart and just went for like what they really wanted to do.
Yeah, me too. And I think especially with like our generation, I think that that's where we're headed. I think like the stereotypical 9 to 5 is going to, go away at some point, and that corporate kind of like mindset is going to hopefully go away. um because there are different options, there are different routes to take where you can still be successful. And like if you're going to be happier in that scenario and still be able to be successful and support yourself, then I don't see the problem. Like I
For
think
sure.
I think that's the mindset that we need to like implement with our next generation, is like, okay, if you don't want to be a nurse or if you don't want to be a teacher, like you don't actually have to be. Like, do you like to knit? Start your own little company. Like I think it's just
Yes.
yeah, important to like implement that, because I don't know. I think we're growing out of this whole like 9 to 5, like corporate. I'm just, you know what I mean?
Totally. I totally understand.
I wanted to ask you, so you were able to like find this passion with YouTube and stuff and really quickly probably realize that you can't really do it as a side hustle. I think a lot of YouTubers end up doing what you did and being like, okay, I could actually do this full time because I have no time in the day. Like there are 24 hours, but like there's absolutely no time with two full-time jobs. So what is your favorite part about being like, like a content creator full time?
I think one thing that I didn't realize was like it just gives me more time to like be creative and think creatively. I feel like before when I was working a full-time job, I didn't have a good like time frame to actually just sit and create ideas. I feel like I would kind of make things that I felt like people wanted to see, but I didn't really dig into like what I wanted to make. So that has been one really cool shift. I feel like I'm a lot more creative with my videos than I've ever been. And in the past, I feel like, I mean, I just think back to like when I worked at this corporate office in our downtown area. And by downtown, it's like, I mean, it's cute, but it looks like a Hallmark video. Um,
It's
but
cute.
I, I worked downtown. I remember on my lunch hour, I would drive all the way over to Walmart and I would do like a little like shop with me at Walmart and then like buy some cool stuff and then like show like why I wanted to buy it. And then I would rush back. I'd be eating my lunch in the car and I'd rush back to the office and then I'd like edit that video and put it up the next day. But you have to have daylight, you know, for videos most of the time. Um, and I feel like at that time I was trying to provide value for people because I knew that they wanted me to show up and I never missed an upload. But I feel like I wasn't really creating stuff that I was really passionate about. I mean, I almost never shop at Walmart. And I feel like that was something that other people needed to see, but not something that I was like super excited to create. So I love that now I can just really focus on what I love and just kind of stick with that. And if people don't like vibe with it, then that's totally okay.
Totally. What do you think is like the hardest part about showing your life online? I'm sure you get that question a lot where, being vulnerable and wanting to show, the people that follow you without kind of like crossing that line.
I think the hardest thing for me is I'm not a super vulnerable person with people I don't know, like at all. And I find that people get a lot of value when I am vulnerable, but I have a really hard time, one, being vulnerable, but two, providing value to people in a way that I think is going to be beneficial and not just like venting or ranting.
Mhm.
It's a fine line, I think, between doing that. And so sometimes I don't really want to tread that line. So I'm just like not vulnerable. So that is one thing I definitely have to navigate. And then of course, everyone has different like thoughts and feelings. And I really, really like try really hard to be kind to everyone. And I try to take everyone's feelings and thoughts into consideration. And it's so hard to do that when like everyone thinks differently. So that's another thing I guess that's hard to navigate sometimes with social media because you could have, let's say, a pair of jeans that you wear and someone says you look absolutely terrible and someone else says that you look like fantastic. And, the other person's like, I want to see more clothing from this brand. And then someone else is like, I never want to see this brand ever again.
Yeah.
Like this didn't provide me any value. So trying to just figure out like what is best and just do what you think is best can be like difficult sometimes to navigate.
Yeah, and I feel like when you have, different opinions like that coming in all the time constantly, it's definitely got to be difficult to balance that and to be able to handle it. First of all, I think everyone struggles with, their social media presence in general, whether you're a content creator or not, with like what people actually think of what they're putting out. How do you deal with like people maybe accepting you or not accepting you or like your content in general?
I feel like when I first started creating content, I was really trying to curate things that I felt like people wanted to see, whether it was on YouTube or Instagram. And now I'm just like, well, if you rock with me, you rock with me. If you don't, you don't. And it took me a long time to get to that place because I think it's so easy just to want to like people please. And especially in the beginning, when you don't have people following you and you're pretty much making things and you're like, okay, I'm getting 6 views or I'm getting 3 people who are looking at like my content. um you almost feel a little cringy because it's like I'm creating something that maybe 0 people are finding value in it. um but then you get to a place where there are more eyes on you and they all want different things. And so I just feel like I got to the point where I was just like, I just have to do what I think is best and then hope that everyone else like finds some value in it.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it took you a little bit of time to kind of get to that place. I think that's definitely like a strong asset to have to be like, you know what? If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. But I think that's just how we all need to like be in a sense. Like you have to have a little bit of like, I don't really give a crap, you know?
Well, I think too, like, n- I know I'm not for everyone, and like that's totally fine. And I feel like I used to be the type of person where I felt like I had to be for everyone. Like, well,
Right.
if you don't like fashion, then I can do this because I know
Yeah.
that you like that. And like, I look at my friendships that I have and the people that I know, like, there's some people that are just not for me, and there's nothing that they're doing wrong. It's just like I don't necessarily connect with their personality. And I feel like whenever I recognized that, it made it more okay for me to just be myself, because if I have people in my life that I'm not necessarily friends with, but I know that aren't for me, then and they're not doing anything wrong, they're just being themselves, then I'm sure that other people think the same thing about me and they have no hard feelings against me, and like that's okay. That's There's nothing wrong with that. So that took a long time to learn, but it definitely has helped create more content and have me just be more confident in what I make, because I know it's stuff that's like true to me.
And that's hard too to like realize like okay maybe these people don't work with me well and I need to just move on and that's okay, like that's just life. I've also like recently discovered that that is okay if you don't mesh with some people. And I was talking with someone the other day about like the whole like having a friend or a couple of friends or whatever it is that you were really really close with and then all of a sudden you're like okay, I think I've like grown out of you a little bit. Like, I think that's okay. Like, that's not like anybody's fault. It's not their fault. It's not your fault. It's just how like life goes. And like, that's okay, you know?
Yeah, and friendships are really hard, and I almost wish that like all of us got a crash course on friendship like as
Totally.
kids. It's like, how have we just went our whole lives navigating this and like no one told us what we should or shouldn't be doing? But I feel like you said, it happens all the time that two people grow like just apart, and they're
Yeah.
just two totally different people. And I think about, like, I had a really close friend when I was in I don't know, like grade school or something. And I remember like we kind of drifted apart. And I remember at the time I was a lot younger and I was so like sad about it. And I thought there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
But I look at our lives now and they're totally different. And like we're still like, nothing happened. We still like talk to each other and our moms still love each other. And like, I'll still send her a text on Christmas. Um, but I just look, our lives are totally different, and I feel like it should be encouraged more for people to grow out of people, because if you stay in the same place that you were 20, 30 years ago or 10 or 15 years ago, I mean, that just kind of shows that you're not really growing much as a person. So I think it should be more celebrated versus like a sad like moment in your life.
I love that. Celebrate it. I think, yeah, I mean, if you're not growing, then what are you doing? I mean, it's totally okay. Like, and what you said, you look back at that friend and what they're doing now is completely different from like what you're doing now. And I can totally relate. Like, and it kind of just validated, I have no ill will with this person, but we just won't click. And that's totally okay. And I wish them the best. And yeah, she's clapping.
I know. For the
Um,
viewers, I'm just clapping, lots of claps, because it's a hard lesson to learn. I think like
yeah.
no one really talks about it. And so yeah, but I think that as you grow, you just will grow out of people, you'll grow out of jobs, you'll grow out of hobbies, and that's totally fine.
And that is okay.
Mhm.
I wanted to touch on something you mentioned. You said it's really hard for you to be vulnerable. And with being online all the time and pretty much as your full time job, I can imagine like the difficulty with that. And especially with like the year that we've had, do you think that being vulnerable and being honest about like, your thoughts on certain things is tough for you to do? Or do you think it's like important or maybe both? And
Oh,
how do you deal with that?
yeah, it's definitely tough and it's definitely important. And it's definitely tough. I guess I want to say that again, because like it is uncomfortable to talk about things that people just don't talk about, or things that everyone doesn't agree on. I mean, and I also think that like just last year was a crazy year with, COVID and people wearing masks and like, the Black Lives Matter movement. And I feel like there were so many like taboo things that a lot of people didn't want to talk about. And I feel like I just had to be true to me and talk about what I felt was important. But along with that, like I said, it's really hard to be vulnerable. I feel like it's harder for me to share things when I still kind of have emotion behind it. If I share like a
Yeah.
soup soup recipe that I love and someone's like, this is the worst soup I've ever had. I'm like, okay, just don't eat it, you know? I think I shared once Starbucks drink. Actually, I share it all the time. There's a Starbucks drink that I'm obsessed with and I share it all the time. And so many people have like said that they love it. And I had a couple people who were like, oh, this is like gross. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. Like, you know, and that's fine because it's just a drink. But I think when it comes to like really important topics that like affect my family or my friends, I think that's where I have a harder time um not removing my heart, but kind of guarding my heart more so that I don't feel personally like hurt by someone else and what they say just because they don't really understand where I'm coming from. But I think it's definitely important to talk about things that are um, uncomfortable and kind of taboo because I feel like that's really the only way to like make it not be taboo. And like I said, I live in a very small town, so you can imagine. I mean, just all the ideas that people have, and a lot of people kind of are on a one-track mind only because they have just lived in the town, haven't really left. And so I think that those conversations are important because when you have them, people can really start, I don't know, just like maybe seeing someone else's point of view and kind of sitting with that and hopefully growing from it. And hopefully I grow from their conversation. So yeah, it's important, but I think it's definitely really hard.
Yeah. No, and I can't imagine like having to, especially when there is so much emotion behind it and you have like actual real, it's not a Starbucks drink. Like this is real life and you have those emotions behind, your vulnerability and what you're about to say. It's interesting with the one track mind statement you said, like in the town that I went to school in, that's exactly what I kind of dealt with. And I saw a lot where, people have like a one tracked mind, but also this bias they don't even, I think, realize they have. And that's because of they grew up in the same place, lived in the same town their whole life. That's all they know. And I think that plays a big role in it. But yeah, I just think the past year was crazy. And I wish that a lot of it didn't happen, but I'm very glad that conversations came from it. And you said the word taboo. Like, why is it taboo though? Why, like, I don't want it to be taboo. I think that we were getting somewhere with like kind of knocking that wall down and being like, okay, this is what we're dealing with. This is actually what we've been dealing with. Why don't we just handle it, talk about it, share it? Um, so yeah, I can't imagine like trying to be vulnerable and actually have those conversations with people that, might actually disagree or have a problem with what you're even, saying.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Like just with something being taboo, I really think that things are taboo because people just like kind of talk about them like what's I'm trying to think of an image, but I can't think of how to phrase it. Like when you stoke the fire and you're like just barely like touching the little
Yeah.
things and you're like, oh, you're like kind of reaching for it. And I feel like, in the past, a lot of kind of taboo conversations people would kind of circle around or not even bring up. And now I feel like, I mean, just looking at like the body positivity movement and how much it's grown and like size inclusivity and like all these cool things.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't 10 years ago, if someone were like, hey, like my size isn't in a store, like that never would have been something that came to my top of mind because like my sizes are typically in stores. Um, so I think that conversations that people have brought up have just really pushed people to really think about their businesses, think about themselves, and like learn and grow. So I'm all for that, but I think it's definitely really hard. But if we just try to make it a priority to just bring up occasionally and kind of push the boundaries, maybe not just at Thanksgiving or Christmas, but just all the time and with love and kindness, of course, I think that that will really help us just like create actual change.
Totally. The body positivity. I am watching a lot of like, this is a little random, but I'm watching a lot of like old shows right now, like Gilmore Girls, like One Tree Hill, like just to like have on during the day or whatever. And shows like that, I'm realizing like, wow, we are in a completely different place. Like things that are said, like super small framed women are saying like, I'm so fat. Like the word fat is just like thrown out like so nonchalant. And I'm like, What? What is happening? And I think the way that we look at, bodies now is just like a healthier mindset about it. Like, it's just like, okay, let's like normalize that like bodies are actually different. There's not like size 0 to 4. Like, that's just not normal. Like, we don't all look the same. And I think, yeah, I think this past year really opened our eyes to multiple things. And that was one of them too. Like, with our generation specifically, we are very open minded people. And I think that is going to only get stronger with like the generations coming. So I'm very excited about like what's to come with that. I think it's only going to get better. Like, I hope, you can
I
only
think so
hope.
too. I think so too.
So, actually, I guess going along with like the body positivity, I want to talk about kind of the pressures that you feel on social media and with like that kind of, mindset. Like, do you feel like you're comparing yourself to other content creators, other influencers? And how does that like go for you?
I don't compare myself to other influencers. I feel like I used to compare, not in a like looking at people's bodies, but I think I compared more to like just the friendships that they would connect with. I feel like I had a hard
Mhm.
time with that. Um, but I feel like the more I just become comfortable in who I am, I stop comparing. But I mean, if you had looked at me in like high school or college, I mean, I was literally a carbon copy of the people around me. Like, I mean, my fashion, my hair, my makeup was all like other people. And so I feel like when you really become secure in who you are, you stop comparing as much because there's so many different types of people. I mean, there's people who have a smaller bodies or bigger bodies, some people who are really outgoing, some people are really quiet, and there's always going to be like a person who's a little bit different from you.
Yeah.
So comparing yourself is almost, I guess, perfection is like subjective because someone might really, really love someone who's in a smaller body, and then someone else might love someone who's in a bigger body. Someone might love that outgoing girl who walks into a room and everyone gravitates towards her, and then other people might hate that girl and they love the girl who's really quiet and shy on the wall. So I feel like when I really started to just become comfortable in myself, that's when I really stopped comparing.
Yeah. And that's a hard place to get to too, is to finally be comfortable with you. In high school, everybody does kind of look the same, dress the same, act the same because you're in this little bubble and you don't really know any different and you don't want to. High school is just weird because you don't really want to stand out, as like weird as that is. And now I think once you grow up a little bit, you're like, I want to be me and I want to be different from the girl, the boy next to me. How do you think like your fashion has evolved since then? Because like we said earlier, like you're really into neutrals now and you're just like such a fashionista. How did you like evolve from then?
Well, thank you. When I look at myself, I honestly don't see myself as like a fashionista. So like when you say that, I'm like, oh my God, thank you. And I think that my fashion really just evolved into who I actually am and what I actually love as I began to love myself more. I mean, if you look back, I mean, I would have like Hollister polos and like J. Crew, whatever, and like, those big gold or not gold, those big chunky necklaces. You know what I'm talking about? They were like
Yes.
colorful and like, ugh. When you look back on it, it's like everyone wore
We
it.
all had
And
them. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I remember when my friend got this Coach bag in high school, and it was like, well, I want a Coach bag because my friend has that Coach bag, and I wanted the exact same one. It's like, why? It's I wanted it because I felt that that's what I needed to have. And I remember in high school, I also like worked at Abercrombie because like that's where people shopped, and I
Yeah.
wanted to like get the first clothes. And it's just so problematic when you look back on it. So my fashion then was very like it was bright and colorful, but it was also like hints of what I actually love, but I was too afraid to actually wear what I wanted to wear. So I might wear like, I don't know, a polo with like some joggers. And I was like, oh God, like I can't, like I have to take it off. I need to put on like some jeans. And I feel like I came into my fashion when I just came into myself, when I was really young. And I guess this is kind of a just encouragement for any of your listeners. Like if you're trying to figure out your fashion and like your style and like what you actually love, look back at like what you wore as a child and like what you picked out. Because when I was younger, I used to pick out these big, big tees. And my mom would be like, oh my God, like you look like such a boy. And I would like climb trees and like hang out with the guys. And I would wear these like cut off shorts. And obviously they were like jean shorts, not cute by any means. But when you look at my style now, it's big tees, like sweat shorts that are like cut off from sweatpants, and just very like big, baggy, comfortable. So that's kind of how I like grew into my style. I just started falling into like what I actually love. And I mean, I've talked about living in a small town, and I'm the only one who has hair like I have. I'm the only person who dresses like I do. And, you know, when I walk into a meeting of any kind and I'm like wearing like sweatpants and and like a, I don't know, trench coat or something, like I'm sure people are like, what in the actual heck is she wearing? Because like we're all wearing like polos and dress pants. But I mean, you just have to like wear what you love and stick with that, because I'm sure there are other people who are in that meeting that wish that they could be confident in what they love. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that's kind of how I transitioned and found what I actually like. And then I just kind of stuck with neutrals.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you looked back and you were like, okay, that's exactly kind of like what I'm doing now. Also, why was like everything so embarrassing in high school? Like you were like, I had these joggers on with a polo, but like I have to quickly take them off because I need to put jeans on. Like I just remember my like uncomfortability with my outfit every single morning. I would like, or every single night before school, I would like pick it out and then like double check myself, probably like try on like six different things and be like, does this look like everybody else? And then in the morning, probably even still second guess myself and be like, I don't know, like this is like so embarrassing. Like, why am I even like overthinking this? I just want to be cool. And it's just like the weird, embarrassing mindset that we had. And you just wanted to like blend in with everybody else. It's just a weird time, I think, because you're obviously still growing and you're immature and you don't really know who you are yet, which makes sense. But looking back, I did the same thing. I'm like, wait, I have to take this off because this is not normal. And like the brands you needed to have, like the Abercrombie, the Hollister, it was just, I'm glad that we've like grown from this because like I can't handle that anymore.
I totally agree. I mean, and even thinking past high school, I look at like college. I used to stress so much about like what I would wear to a party.
Yeah.
And I just like, well, what is everyone else wearing? Or like if I was gonna go to dinner, just like go out to eat and be like, I would like text my friends in our group chat and be like, what are you guys wearing? And like I feel like that comes so much from insecurity, because at the time I really wanted to look like everyone else and I didn't want to be out of place. Like I didn't want to be too overdressed or too underdressed. I didn't want to be too colorful, or I didn't want to be like too, you know, monochromatic or whatever. And when you really just start to find your style and love what you wear, it doesn't really matter if you walk into a room and you're wearing sneakers and sweatpants when everyone else is wearing heels, because it's like you love what you're wearing.
Yeah.
And I think that like I've come so far from where I used to be, and it takes a lot of work, because you do walk into rooms and people kind of do give you those looks that are like, did you not get the memo? But
But you're
what's the
confident. You like what you're wearing, then like wear it.
yeah, and what's the point of dressing like other people when like it's not something that you love to wear?
Yeah, and I think fashion plays a huge role, in my opinion, in your mindset, if that's like weird to say. Because I think if you feel good, like you're gonna have a good day, and even if that is like a sweat set, like if you feel good about this, believe me, that's literally all I wear. And if you feel good about a sweat set, like okay, then you're good. Like what do you have to worry about? Nothing. Like you're good. I think if you look good, you feel good. That's just like always something that I've tried to keep in my mind. Like if and oh my gosh, when you said you texted your friends, I would do that all the time. And that is an insecurity thing. That is like, the text would always say, um, are we looking cute or are we like bumming it? Because like if we're looking cute, then like I'll do that. But if you guys are gonna look cute and I come in sweatpants, like I can't. Like I will like freak. But now
Literally.
I don't ask anybody. Like I just show up in what I want to wear. Like it's just I who cares? You know?
I love that. I love that. And that just shows so much growth like in yourself, because like you said, like I mean it, and I used to do that too. It's just it's almost like you don't want to stick out. But the question is why? Like why don't
Yeah.
you want to stick out if you're wearing something that you like and you like yourself? And maybe that comes back to just you don't really like yourself, so you don't want people to see you in something that you feel like isn't flattering. Um but yeah, I mean that just shows so much growth in you. So like that's awesome.
More class.
Yay, more claps.
So I want to touch on something that you've kind of talked about and you show a lot on your social media, which is like the routine of things in your day. Because I think people are really starting to realize like having a good routine, which sounds, it might sound cheesy, like me even saying it is like cheesy, but having a good routine honestly really helps your day. Like it really benefits your life in a lot of ways. So I want to learn about your routine, what you do every day that like keeps you going, keeps you in like a good mindset.
I have such a strict routine, but like you said, it really sets your day up for like just a win already. Every morning when I wake up, I read for about 10 minutes, and I'm really, really working on this is like part of my routine that I still haven't quite like figured out, but I'm working on not touching my phone.
Me
I
too.
don't really want to touch my phone until like after 30 minutes is up. And usually like I'll read for 10 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, okay, like, I need to check my emails. Um, but I really think it's important to like give your brain just time to wake up. I think about when I used to go into like an actual office space, and when I got to the office, I almost gave myself 30 minutes to just situate. Like I would get my coffee, I would get my notes out, like my pen, I would like turn on my computer, and like you don't really get into the deep work until you're like settled and in. Like, I would talk to my boss about like what we had planned for the day. And I think that that's what you should do at the start of your day, just kind of get yourself situated. So I usually start reading, and then I work out on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So if I'm working out, I usually read, I get up and like leave for the most part. But on the days that I'm not working out, I feel like on Mondays and Fridays, I get up, I shower, I always like clean my kitchen every single morning because I have like an open concept house. And so if I have a ton of like dishes piled up or like stuff on my counters, it just makes me feel like the house is dirty. I was actually telling my husband the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, the house is so trash. And he was like, there's literally one blanket on the floor. Like, I'm just that way where I almost feel like if there's too much clutter around or things aren't in their place, I feel like the house is like messy. So I do like a quick morning tidy. It's usually only like 15 minutes. And if you're someone who goes to an office, I think that's still important to do that just because you'll come back from work and you'll feel like your house is just so clean. So even before I go work out, I always like wipe off the counters. I usually use something that smells like lavender, something that's going to be really fresh, or lemon. And then after that, if I'm not working out, I shower. I always get my coffee and I always make breakfast. Usually I'll do something quick because I think breakfast is important, but I also think that breakfast is a freaking hassle when you're trying to just like get your day going. So I'll try to do like eggs, just like 2 eggs really quick, or I'll do like a bagel. I do croissants a lot, but I have them like already pre-made. So I'll buy like a container that's already made and then I'll just warm it up and put some jelly on it. Instant oatmeal. I think you can have a really good breakfast if you like get things that are already kind of made already. So yeah, I do that. And then I always listen to a podcast, and I think that like it depends on my mood. If I'm in like kind of a on the cusp of like, oh, like this might be a bad day, or like I'm a little frustrated, I might listen to music instead, or I'll listen to like a funny podcast. Sometimes podcasts I need like to actually be able to sit and listen and learn. And so if I'm like a little stressed, usually music helps. And then if I'm in one of those days where I'm like, I'm a boss, like we're gonna kill it today, I turn on like my favorite podcast and like listen to them, give myself like a good pump up. And that's kind of my morning. It sounds long, but I promise it's not. And even on the days I work out, I still do all that stuff. I just do it in a different sequence. I'll like listen to the podcast on the way in the car. I might take my breakfast in the car because I'm like rushing. So I think that even if you go to an actual workspace, I think it's really important to still try to have some kind of morning routine. Because I remember when I worked in a workspace, I would literally drag myself out of bed and I would like run to the closet and just like throw on whatever I felt would be like fine to wear, rush out the door, wouldn't eat breakfast, just like rushing, rushing, rushing. And I found that on those days, those were the days I felt stressed. And I think that a big part of that was starting the day out really rushed. So I felt behind. But if you kind of start out slow, I think that really helps you to feel kind of at peace before you start the day. And it just starts a good morning routine.
Yeah, I think what you said about getting settled is really important because I've found the same. I feel like our routines are very similar because I've kind of found the same where if I, hit snooze like 12 times, okay, maybe 12's a lot, but like hit snooze a couple times and really roll out of bed and just like go right into work, like I don't have a good work day and I don't have a good, like, I'm not in a good mood that day. Then I'm like, my whole day's messed up. But I feel like if I really take the time to like get out of bed and like, do my skincare, have my coffee, have a minute for me. I'm also trying to like not be on my phone in the morning. Like as soon as I wake up, obviously my alarm is on my phone. So I like turn my alarm off and I just double check if there's like any like emergency text messages. If there's not, I just like put it down. But it's so hard. And I think like I really need to work on it. But yeah, I think like getting settled and getting kind of like in that good mindset is like the best way to get your day off on the right foot. And yeah, I love all of that. Yeah, I just think like it's very, very important. And so as far as finding like, I want to talk about finding that inner peace with yourself and like being happy with yourself every day. Like, what can you say to that?
Well, I think mindset is such a powerful thing. And I almost wish that just like growing up, I learned more about mindset and just like being like focusing on positive things and just being in a good headspace because I feel like on those days where I felt rushed or whatever, there wasn't really anything different. It's just more my in my head, I just felt, oh, I was going to be late or oh, I haven't had breakfast yet, so I'm going to be so hungry by the afternoon or oh, I haven't had my coffee, so right when I get to the office I need to make my coffee, it might put me behind. And you just start thinking all these things and then it kind of puts you in a bad place. But when you really think about it, other than being late, which that can definitely be detrimental, but when you really think about it, when you get out of bed and you rush to work versus when you have a slower morning, the actions aren't necessarily what changes
Right.
your day. I think it's just your mind. You just feel more at peace, more calm. You feel like in control of your life versus just kind of your life controlling you. So I think for me, um, mindset is so important. So I know when I actually heard this quote once, it said, did you have a bad day or did you just have like 10 little moments that frustrated you that led you to a bad day? I was like, oh my God, it's like literally, I mean, when you think about it on those bad days, very rarely does something catastrophic happen. It's usually like, you woke up and you spilled some of your coffee and then you got in your car and you didn't have time to like heat it up with your, key or whatever. So it was a little cold. And then like you get to work and you're running a little late or someone says something that was kind of snide. And it's like all these small things that just build up and you get stressed. I'm just getting stressed thinking about it. And
I'm like,
I feel like when you focus on those small things versus, okay, I woke up and spilled my coffee, but it's really sunny outside today. And like, I'm so excited that it's like sunny. Or I got in my car and yes, it's a little bit cold, but I have a 30-minute drive where I can listen to my podcast that I absolutely love or listen to my favorite song and like belt it out while I'm driving to work. I think what you focus on is what can really shape your mindset. So I really try to just focus on the good all the time. And it's really, really hard, especially when there are a lot of small things that just kind of knock you back. But when I do find that I'm on the ledge of like, oh my God, 50 million things have happened today, and I cannot have one more thing happen or one more person say something to me, I'm literally gonna freak out. On those days, usually I'll come home and just do a whole like relaxing routine. I'll do my skincare. I actually posted my stories last night and I was like, is there anything better than like taking a shower? I didn't say all this, obviously, I said it in a lot less words, but like taking a shower, getting a bowl of ice cream, getting your favorite book, lighting a candle, and just like crawling into bed with like comfy clothes and just relaxing. Like,
wow.
it's it's you could do that for 10 minutes and it would just completely change your night. And so on those days where I'm a little stressed, I usually try to like have some time to do that kind of stuff. And it makes the day a little bit better.
Yeah, I think all of that was great. And I think something that you said was it's important what you focus on because if you are focusing on like the small things that really like irritated you that day, then you are going to have a bad day. But if you focus on like those small things that happened that were good, you'll have a good day. Yeah, like you said, I wish I had this mindset when I was a little bit younger. I mean, I'm glad that I have it now, but it definitely would have benefited me back then as well. To wrap things up, I know you're a big reader. What is like your all-time favorite that you would recommend sharing with our listeners today? Favorite
One
book?
book that I loved, Big Little Lies, was so phenomenal. It actually turned into a TV show,
Yeah.
and I love books that kind of have you on the edge of your seat. I'm actually reading The Husband's Secret by the same author, and I just love books that kind of have like a twist. So that one was really good, and then The Couple Next Door was another one that I just freaking was obsessed with. I think because I didn't really expect the ending. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, those two I think are like my top, but I wouldn't say they're my favorites. They're just like some of my most recent reads, so I really like those. Another book for learning that I really loved was So You Want to Talk About Race is a really good one. I like books that if you're reading it for learning, that they give you like kind of like action steps of like stuff to work on. And I feel like in that book, they give you so much value, but they also give you like specific things that you can do to just like be a better person. So yeah, I think those are probably some of my favorites.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think we're about done for today's episode, but where can people find you on social media, YouTube, all of that? I will obviously tag it, but just for who's listening.
Yeah, you can find me at Shawnaci Schroeder on YouTube and on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, just like dabbling a little bit. But the way that you spell it is SHAWNACISCHROED as in dog ER. And I always have to spell it because everyone has like their own
Yeah.
way that they spell things. But yeah, you can just find me at that first and last name literally anywhere.
Cool. Such a pretty name, by the way. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, be sure to follow her on all of the socials. I promise you, you won't regret it. But thank you so much for coming on today. It was so much fun chatting with you.
Thank you for having me. I feel like this was just like a super fun like girl chat. It's like a sleepover or something.
Yeah.
Like we got into all the good stuff and I love it.
I know, so fun. Well, be sure to follow her on all socials, and be sure to follow Girl We Gotta Talk podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and I'm also trying to dabble on TikTok too, but it's just like kind of hard. I'm figuring it out, having fun with it, all of the good stuff. But thank you guys so much for listening. Bye.